Hello everybody, Dodger here, and welcome back to Automation, the car company tycoon game. And we are continuing on with the Vector Automotive Challenge. Last time we built some shop-tuned and fantasy race car and a home tuner version of the Vector Vextron, which, if you remember, is our first ever car as a car company. And we did it in a modest style, like a real car company would if they were just starting out, by using some existing parts and going after a basically empty market. Well, we had pretty good success in that regards. We got into a nice little market and, well, we'll say we sold through our limited production cars for a couple years. But now it's 2 years later, the year is 2000, and we want to try and broaden our horizons, grow our company, and build something that is truly a Vector product from bottom to top. The Vextron shall not be forgotten, however. That is the car that started our company, but now it is time to try and make ourselves an in-house engine. And that is the part I want to start with first. I want to go through a couple options, see, kind of weigh in my mind which one I would like the best and which one you guys would like the best. What do you think is the best direction for our company to take? Basically, how I envision this going is we are going to build a new engine family. So this is the engine that's going to carry itself through, hopefully, our entire model lineup until we get to the point where we have the company standing to have multiple different engines in production and for different vehicles for different purposes. But there's a lot you can do with just one single engine, but a lot of that kind of depends on what you're starting with. So let's examine our options real quick. So in the realm of automation, and say we limit ourselves to the year 2000, we are limited to an inline 4 or an inline 6 or a V8 or a V8 flat plane. Those are the options. Unfortunately, we don't have V6s to choose from. We don't have inline 5s. We don't have anything other than those options. So within those, you pretty much cover every kind of engine you would possibly need. I have been accused in the past of only wanting to build V8s, which is strange to me because I am such an enthusiast of inline 4s and inline 6s. But it could be the case that the V8's instant performance has been kind of persuading me to build them. I'm not saying I'm not going to build one, but I would like to go through a couple different options first. Okay, so we started our company with an inline 6 borrowed from BMW. It is a fantastic engine. It has tons of tunability, as we found last time, and can be used in a variety of different packages. The problem is, it's an inline 6, which means it's very long. So if we ever want to build a front-wheel drive car, that ain't gonna happen. Or if we want to build a very small front-engine rear-wheel drive car, that makes it kind of difficult there too. An inline 4 or a V8 doesn't necessarily have those problems. An inline 4 could be good for front-wheel drive applications because it's lighter weight. You're not going to have quite the potential horsepower out of it, but that doesn't mean you couldn't build a very small V8, that is obviously one of my favorites, and try and incorporate that into a front-wheel drive application too. So that's the route I am going to take here. I'm going to build a baseline. Keep that in mind, these are baseline engines, 4-cylinder inline 4 and a V8. And these will be the engine. This will be the engine platform that carries us into the future. We can do a lot with these engines. Hopefully, we can do a lot with these engines to make them different and unique for every application. But there's some things that I'm going to limit myself on changing in between them. So what does that include? Well, let's build an inline 4, and I think that will pretty much explain what I have in mind here. Okay, so the year is 2000. I would say aluminum blocked engines are going to be the way to go by this time, especially in a 4-cylinder application. And size-wise, we haven't quite hit the fuel crunch yet. Now, to be to be historically correct, we can't really say we know what's about to happen as far as what's about to happen to fuel prices and stuff like that. But in the late 90s, early 2000s, fuel economy had already started to become important. Fuel prices had started to rise. They just hadn't quite gotten to the extreme point that they are of the early 2000s. Emissions is also something that has started to become a concern, so we don't want to go too wild and crazy with this as a baseline engine. It doesn't mean we can't do crazy things with it, but we don't want to make it so that it's so high performance we can't get any economy out of the thing. But when we do the bore and stroke here, every engine that I create beyond this will have the same bore. If you look at the way automation scales engines, you can change the stroke with less dramatic change to it than you can the bore. And that's kind of true in real life in some cases. Most of the time you can bore an engine out more than its factory baseline, but for the realm of our challenge here, I am going to say that the bore has to remain at an 88.5. The stroke for the regular engine, I am going to keep at the same square ratio, so that will also be an 88.5. So in the future we could either shorten that or lengthen it to try and meet our specific applications. This is a stock base engine. Well, of course it's a stock engine, but it is just the simple, this is what you get in the base car engine. So we're going to go with simple bottom end parts. We don't need anything too crazy there. And I want there to be a lot of potential left in this engine as well. On the top end, dual overhead cam is the way to go for the era. This is obviously pretty much the pinnacle of the four-cylinder engine and in its time span. Any more four-cylinder engines are kind of going to the wayside, at least in the NA configuration. Super high horsepower NAs just don't seem to be anybody's priority right now. It's all about the turbos. But you have engines like Honda's K-Series, or GM has the Ecotec in this era, or at least they're developing it. That's kind of the standard now, is this dual overhead cam. 4 valve per cylinder setup, and in Europe as well, obviously. Let's see. We have kind of a normal compression ratio. We'll leave that normal. VVT. I would say I'm going to put a little bit of money into this. I'm going to have VVT on the intake and exhaust, but no VVL. We'll leave that for future use as well. We will leave it naturally aspirated, obviously, and injection-wise, regular multi-point EFI, direct injection, not quite yet. Standard intake, regular unleaded, and we'll give it a decently lean fuel mixture. I will adjust this as needed, and 6,500 is a pretty conservative number for a square, somewhat small engine like this. Short cast headers, I don't think we're going to be making more than 171 horsepower. It would surprise me if it did. Let's see. 146 might be too little. We'll see. I'll play with that. And we'll do straight through and a reverse flow. No, yes, straight through then a reverse flow. That makes sense to me, because you have a resonator and then a regular muffler in the back. Okay, let's see what this engine produces. $139 and $136. We did end up running into some bottom end issues. Let's see. Let's go into the test mode real quick. See who's given up. Just kind of curious. Pistons and connecting rods. That usually means that it's just a wise idea to tone down that RPM limit a little bit. Let's see if we're out of danger yet. Still kind of in trouble. Even at 6, it's kind of in trouble. So let's see. Let's go down to 6100 and we'll do a regular test. See if it still says we're having issues and see what the reliability says. $137, 136. We're still in a decent kind of range for power there. And reliability is up to 63, so that's pretty darn good. 83.9 on the fuel octane. We have 86 available, so let's advance this timing. We'll try and get the economy out of this thing first. It may give us a little bit of power. Yeah, it did give us a little bit of power as well, but it's definitely improving the economy. At 21%, that's not too bad. Okay, I used the rest of our available octane to lean this bad boy out and try and get more economy out of it. And I just reduced the exhaust tubing size, which was a little bit excessive. See if we can squeak a little bit more power out of this thing, especially in the low band. It's a very nice torque curve, actually. And power-wise, still at like 137. But I like how much bottom end it has. A very drivable engine. And overall, so much potential left in this thing. I would hedge my bets and say 200 horsepower is not unrealistic to pull out of this thing if we needed it. But let's also keep in mind, this exact engine has to go in the Vextron. So there will be a very economy-based kind of new entry-level Vextron for the year 2000, which will be getting a facelift for this year, but that is for next episode, so I'll explain that more in a little bit. But first, let me save this engine, and let's just say this is our option 4-cylinder. And let's do the same thing, but build a V8. Alright, V8 time. Now, I've typically kind of sided with the flat planes, so I'm going to go for the regular cross-plane V8 for now. And I am going to stick with this aluminum block. I do need to lower the year down to the year 2000. And let's see. I am a big fan of the low displacement V8s. That's no surprise to anybody. And I am going to go with a low displacement V8 once again. I'm going to do the same thing here. The bore, it is what it is. We cannot change that. The stroke, however, in the future we can if needed. So, our base engine will be 84.9 by 84.9. That's a 3.8 liter V8. Very small. Not unheard of as far as how small it is. Toyota produced V8s this small. Nissan got close to this small. But we're going to try and burst into this market with something new, something different. An extremely low displacement V8 that has a little bit more of that kind of race-bred mentality to it. As far as the bottom end goes, nothing overly fancy here either. Remember, this is entry level. Now for the bottom end. We don't have that advanced pushrod to choose from just yet. I would love to have that option, but that will come in the next automation update, not this one. So if we went with a regular pushrod, it just feels wrong. It doesn't fit our company model at all to me. The overhead cam, single overhead cam, is pretty reasonably priced, and we can get some pretty good performance out of there. We'll do 3 valves per cylinder, and heads are something that you can change. We can develop better heads for this thing if needed. I'm trying to keep costs down on this though, so the cost of this versus the 4-cylinder aren't too dramatic at the low end, at the bottom end. Aluminum heads on this one also, and then compression wise, very low. I'm not going to spend the money on VVT here, or VVL. Try and save some dough. NA, we also have the ability to turbocharge this one in the future if needed. Injection-wise, multi-point. We'll go with a single intake, single intake on the intake. What am I saying here? A single throttle body. That's the word I was looking for. A single throttle body on the intake. But we have the option to go with a twin in the future for more performance. So there's a little bit more adjustability in this versus the 4-cylinder. 86.5 once again. We'll keep it lean. I'm going to go ahead and bump the timing up because I think it'll do it. We'll try for that 6,000 RPM again. Short cast. We'll do dual exhaust, but I'm only looking to make 250 max. If I'm making more than 250 horsepower, I'm doing it wrong, in my opinion. High flow, straight through, and reverse flow. Alright, let's see. Hoping that chart is from the other engine. Yes. Let's see where we are at right now. Okay, so it looks like this engine still has a little bit of potential left in it. Our reliability is very, very good, even better than the 4-cylinder. Our economy is actually only slightly lower, and there's still some tuning to do left in this thing. Making 220 foot-pounds and 212 horsepower, I am reasonably okay with that. It's a little bit underperforming, though, to me, versus a V6 of this era. 3.5 liter V6s, we're making somewhat near those numbers, and we have a little bit more displacement than that, so let's see if we can get a little bit more out of this thing. Seems like it is willing to rev a little higher. Shortcast says it is limiting 314, so that is not a problem. Let's see. We didn't have a whole lot of octane left in it. We can go with a little bit more cam profile, though. Let's see if we can get this octane down and increase the timing. Alright, we'll quick through that. Alright, good. Yes, we kept our octane the same. We're up to 230 horsepower. 240, I think, is the number I would like to see. But by doing this, you're seeing these sliders get nearer and nearer to the top, which means a little bit less adjustment is left in this thing to try and get more potential power out of it. We could also try and up the compression a little too. That might be too much. Probably is. 86.4, it is not. Okay. But we actually lost a little power there. Could be due to clipping the top end of it off. 6,400, how about that? Reliability came down a little bit, but we didn't get too much power out of it, so I'm going to cut back down to 6,300. And just a little bit more timing is available. Oh, too much. That's too much. Alright, still knocking. That is strange. 86.5. 86.5. I'll never understand that. Okay, now it's happy. 231, 229. I don't think there's too terribly much I want to do more to this. A little bit lower horsepower than I was hoping for. But the weight, let's look at the weight. 406 pounds in a V8 is very light. Very light. Let's save this as option V8. Okay, so let's look over some numbers right here. So to give you guys a very good look as to which one of these you think you would like more. Production units 48, 1285 on the cost, 406 pounds. Now let's go back to engines. We'll scroll down this ridiculously long list, and option 4-cylinder. Material cost on this one is obviously cheaper. $902 and only 33.4 production units. That's a pretty big difference. Also in weight, 286 pounds versus about 400 pounds. But we're losing about 100 horsepower. So, The option is now up to you. Do we start with a 4-cylinder that could potentially take us into the future a little bit ahead of the game on the economy front, but maybe a little bit behind the game on overall power? Or do we go with the V8 that I apparently am siding with, even though I think otherwise? Do we go with the V8, this small displacement, which I do love small displacement V8s, that potentially does not have as much economy in it, but could potentially make a whole lot more power. But it also limits our ability to make more unique cars in the future. Maybe we won't be able to make that front-wheel drive car for many years, or a rear-engine car, not as easily anyway. So, yeah, there's limits in both ways. They both have their advantages, their disadvantages. The choice is with you. You get to make the choice. Another straw poll going down in the description. Tell me which one you think is going to take Vector into the future and really turn some heads. But that is not all, folks. I said I wanted to have more community interaction with this series, and I do mean that. So, this is part of the Vector Automotive Challenge that I've been kind of waiting to do since the beginning, and that is getting you guys to build your own cars to compete against mine. So, the year is now 2000. I am going to be making upgrades to the Vextron. It's going to go through a slight generational refresh, if you will. The appearance is probably going to change. The engine will stay the same for some models, but there will be new models that introduce the new engine that you guys get to choose. So, your job is to build something to compete with this car in the year 2000. So you have to anticipate what it is I am going to do to this car, and try and get something that you think will be even better. The date is Wednesday, February 11th, 2015. You have exactly 1 week from today until February 18th, 2015 to finish your car and send it over. Send the LUA file over to conedodgeryt@gmail.com, and I will pick a few of my favorites to show on the next episode. I will give them a review, and I will put them head-to-head on the track and in the detailed stats and see if you do indeed better my performance. So I do look forward to seeing your submissions. I hope you're excited about trying to compete against Vector. And after that, after next episode, we will be building the next model for Vector, and I will obviously be showing you the refreshed and updated Vextron here. Alrighty, the challenge has been set. Let me see what you can do. Get your car featured on the next episode. Thanks as always for watching, and I will see you next time.